Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste. Good morning, good evening, wherever we may be. We will begin our session with a meditation, followed by the Satsang and the message for the day. Settling down comfortably, seated posture of your choice. If you're on the floor, you may sit cross-legged, resting your palms on your knees, or in a mudra of your choice. If you're sitting on a chair, place your feet firmly on the floor, your palms on your knees, or in a mudra of your choice. Spine straight, but not rigid. Shoulders relaxed. Face soft. Heart smiling. Face smiling. We will begin the practice with 3 deep breaths. Inhaling joy and happiness from your surroundings. And exhaling joy and happiness towards your surroundings. The beings around you, people, things, space around you. 2 more times. Before we begin our meditation, let's ask ourselves a few questions. Who am I? Who am I? It's okay if you do not have an answer immediately. This may be a good time to begin your dialogue, your conversation with yourself, with the universe. What do I want? What do I desire? Physical, emotional, spiritual, financial. What is it that I want? What is my purpose in life? How can I be of help to those around me? How can I serve the world? What am I grateful for? What am I thankful for? What are my gifts and blessings? Allow the answers to these questions to come up spontaneously. Now take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, allow these questions and answers to lift up from you and float away into the universe, allowing the universe to manifest what is right for you at the right time. Now visualize a candle flame or the flame of a diya or a jyoti. Visualize this in your Chidakash, the dark space behind your closed eyelids. Visualize this candle flame in your Chidakash. The candle flame represents your higher consciousness. The higher consciousness that you're either aware of or you seek to reach. Regardless of where it is, the consciousness is you, and you are the consciousness. Hold your attention on this candle flame for a few moments. If you find the flame moving or distracted, take a deep breath and fix it in one position where you can concentrate on it. Now bring to mind your mantra, or if you do not have your Guru mantra, if you've not been initiated, bring to mind the mantra Om and begin to mentally repeat it, all the while holding your gaze on the candle flame in your Chidakash. If you find yourself getting distracted by outside sounds, noises in the environment, physical sensations, or even if you find yourself seeking a particular experience, the moment you become aware of it, gently bring your attention back to the mantra and the candle flame glowing in your Chidakash. Continue meditating. I'll watch the time and let you know when to come out of your meditation. Enjoy. Now stop thinking the mantra and allow the candle flame to gently blur and share its light way beyond yourself, to your surroundings, to the objects around you, people around you, your neighborhood, your city, state, country, and the entire world. Visualize the entire world lit up by this one candle flame that's shining within you. Now slowly bring your awareness back to your physical seated self. Become aware of your space, the space around you. Tell yourself that you're safely meditating in this space. And whenever you're ready, get your palms to heart center. Rub your palms together. When they're nice and warm, place them on your eyes and across your face. Looking into your palms as you very slowly and gently flutter your eyelids open with a gentle smile on your face. Hari Om Tat Sat. Welcome back. The day after Diwali is celebrated as Govardhan Puja, or it's in recognition or the celebration of the Govardhan hill or mountain. The story connects with a story of Lord Krishna. Although the third day of Diwali, of the 5 days, is the most important with Lakshmi Puja, the other days are also very significant to why they are added into this practice. So I'll tell you the story first. Some of you may know it, some of you may not. So Krishna, when he was a little child, was also very naughty, but also very wise. And his family, his neighbors, and all the people in the neighborhood and the village adored him. And they listened to whatever he said. They allowed him to get away with so much of mischief, so much of it. Not what we do with our children, actually. So one day, he noticed that all the people in his village were preparing for some kind of a celebration or ritual. And he asked his father, "What's going on here? What's happening?" And he said, "This is tradition. We're following tradition, and we are going to pay our respects to Lord Indra, who gives us the rain. And when we have the rain, we have water for our crops and for all our needs, and we survive and we can sustain. So we have to give our offerings to Lord Indra." Now, even when Krishna was a little child, he was aware of the consciousness that was within him, that he was the supreme consciousness. And he felt that this was a teachable moment. So he told his father, the consciousness that moves within Indra is there in all of us. It's the same thing. It's the same thing in different forms. So when we eat something, there is the contribution of so many factors, all of them which are the divine, right from someone who actually planted the seed, or maybe a bird or an animal that dispersed it and it got there. And then there was sunlight. So we have to, first of all, we'll have to be grateful to that person or that animal or that bird or just the wind that dropped that seed over there. And every single seed is accounted for this way. Then we'll have to be grateful to the sun for giving the sunlight. We'll have to be grateful for the water itself, not just the rain that comes down from Indra, but the water in itself. Then we have to be grateful to the tree that kept that fruit, or or housed those seeds that we wanted, those grains. We have to be thankful for the people who harvested it, for the people who cleaned it before it came to us. If it needs cooking, we need to be grateful for the individual people who contributed to making the vessel, for creating the gas or the electricity, and for cooking the food, for serving it to us, and then for us to consume it. So every single one of us, we have to be grateful to all the other people who did not damage it either, you know. So for the existence of a single grain of rice, we have to be grateful to everyone, because everyone supports existence, because everyone is existence. So it's not just Lord Indra. We need to be grateful and celebrate in this tradition by being grateful to everyone. Now, everyone near Mathura loved Krishna as it is. So, and they listened to him. They didn't see him as a little child. They saw him as consciousness. And remember, this is mythology, or this is the way it is told to us, so we understand. So everyone listened to Krishna. If Krishna says that we should do this, then let's do it. And he went on to having everyone in the village then went on to worship and celebrate everything around them. He said, you need to worship the the Brahmins, what he said. But you see, when people take this scripture very literally today, they they presume that the scripture refers to, or this story refers to, a prejudiced hierarchical system of a caste that is supposed to be venerated. Okay? It is not the Brahmin caste that Krishna is asking to worship. He's asking to worship Brahman, consciousness. Ones who have attained consciousness are the Brahmanas, not a particular group of people born in a particular family. So when people take it in a very literal sense, there is always the scope for feeling hurt and harm, and claiming that this particular story is prejudiced. It's not a question of prejudice. It is about recognizing that those who are evolved in consciousness would give without being attached to their own ego. And that is what the reference is. So he asked that, and then he said, you need to also worship the cow, but not the cow as in how we assume it to be. It's not that cow. The cow also comes from the letter, the word itself, right, means that fountain of abundance from whom we receive everything. Okay? And it is symbolically represented as the cow, along with many other symbols also, but the cow, especially Kamadhenu, when we think of it, is recognized as that symbol of abundance. And abundance in nature, as we know, comes from Prakriti. Prakriti is the divine mother, and that's why the cow is also known as the divine mother. So it's a lot of interconnected symbolism. Anyway, so all the people of the village went on to worship everything around, and there was a hill or a mountain nearby. The hill was named Govardhan. And we said, okay, we're worshipping everyone. This hill or mountain must be having some purpose as well. So let's worship the hill as well. Okay. And when all of this festivity of celebration was going on, and everyone was, celebrating and going to worship all of these beings and elements of nature around us and people and everyone. Lord Indra, who we've spoken of before, is the mind that is getting enlightened, which means that there is still ego involved, starts getting angry. And he says, hey, for all these years you've been worshipping me, and now you're giving my share of worship to everyone else. This doesn't work, right? And I don't like it. I don't like it that you're giving my this attention to someone else. And what he does then is what we do as people, you know, we as sadhakas, as disciples on the path, our mind is getting enlightened a little by little, but it's still held on, it still holds on to ego. And we or people around us often, and it's fairly common to feel jealousy. Jealousy happens. It happened to Indra, it can happen to us because it's the enlightened mind. And what he did is what we also do, we react. And he reacted by sending down rain, thunder, lightning, and a storm of horrible proportions. And people didn't know what to do. Their crops were getting damaged, their homes were getting destroyed, the cattle was scurrying around. And they came to Krishna and they said, Krishna, you told us to do this. Now look what's happening. What do we do now? We don't have any place where we can find shelter. We don't know what to do. And Krishna said, don't worry. Now Krishna is the universal consciousness, which means he's the consciousness that's there in himself. He's there in this card. He's there in this flower. He's there in you, in me. He's there in the table. He's there in the trees. He's there in everything. So he moved on and he settled down into the consciousness of this Govardhan hill. And what he did was, with that consciousness, he lifted up the hill on his little finger, on the tip of his little finger. Okay? This 6-year old Krishna. He lifted up that mountain on the tip of his little finger, and all the villagers, their cattle, and everyone who needed protection came under that mountain and took shelter as if it were an umbrella and waited there. And this happened for 7 days. For 7 days, the rain and the storm, all of that just lashed on and on and on because Indra was angry. And then after 7 days, Indra noticed, this is this is not quite regular. There's something strange about this boy. What is this? Who is this? And he comes down and he notices that it is Krishna and he recognizes the consciousness within. That's when his mind actually gets enlightened and he says, oh, now, I said this in the previous session as well. I don't really know if he actually apologized. That's a very contemporary term for us to say, oh, he apologized for what he did. So, apologies or no apologies, he recognized that there was something greater that was happening here. And he bowed down to Lord Krishna, and he said, I will name you Govinda. Okay, and that's where that's the first time that Govinda is referred to in the scriptures. But what Krishna tells him in return is, don't worry about it. Just don't be proud of what you have. Don't be proud. Just go on and do your dharma. Okay, do what you're meant to do. What is your righteous action? Indra's role was to give that rain. Okay, and he could have just done that because people are not taking away. No one takes away your position. Everyone does what they have to do. Okay, the cow herd takes care of the cows. The cows give milk, right? So I just remembered that when my children were younger, my oldest thought that brown cows gave chocolate milk. Okay, and he thought that that's where chocolate milk came from brown cows. And if it was just white milk, then it was just a white cow. So he didn't know what to think of black cows. He must have thought it was dark chocolate or something. But the point is that a cow gives milk. That's its dharma. It wouldn't give chocolate milk as such, right? And the message in all of this is that this story is a philosophical truth for us, it's a spiritual truth for us. It's full of symbolism, it's full of symbolic meaning for us as disciples. If Indra is the mind, then the rituals are all the physical things that we do, the little physical things to connect with our consciousness. The consciousness being the higher consciousness at this point, being Krishna, who takes on the form of the mountain and lifts it up. Okay? When we have this higher consciousness and we tap into that, it acts as our umbrella. It protects us and shelters us from everything else. What is everything else? Everything else are all the physical attachments that we have, the emotional attachments, the sensory attachments, the pleasures, the joys, and all of that, which are good. No one tells us not to use them. But if we get held on to them, right, if we get attached to them, then our ahankara, our ego, goes and attaches itself to the mind. And Indra then becomes ruthless and reactive. Instead of serving you, it destroys you. So, Govardhan Puja is done to celebrate this moment of an elevated consciousness. However, we've got different ways in which we approach worship. Okay, we can approach worship as a very ritualistic practice where people will say, no, we will do all the symbolic rituals within the puja or within the celebration to identify Krishna, to identify the cow, to identify the abundance, so it becomes very gross. But the movement of rituals and worship also, just like how yoga is, just how like how spirituality is a gradual shift from gross to subtle. So, the ritualistic practice is a way to the divine when the individual or when the devotee is at a more gross consciousness. They understand worship, but they need to be ritualistic. The next one is when you make a connection emotionally. You're still doing all these things, but you still have an emotional connection, both with the things around you as well as with the divine. So you do those ritualistic practices. And then a higher form then eventually will be to recognize that divinity and worship is every act. Sitting here is worship. Speaking this satsang, sharing this message with all of you is also worship. Why? Because I'm doing what is dharma. They're not necessarily my words. I come with a particular intention which I allow to come to me, sometime in the morning. And I say, okay, what do we talk about today? And I get an idea. So I know that I have some kind of an idea, but what flows out next is just whatever needs to come through, right? And when we become that channel for the divine, then we are in that act of worship. When you're sitting here listening, soaking this in, this message, you are in an act of worship. You are taking just that. So, what is the message then? The message is that we reach out to divine consciousness at this point. We recognize where we are, and that there is no right or wrong way to begin or to end. But knowing where we are on this journey and recognizing the higher self, we recognize that that light within us then goes on to illuminate everyone else around us as well. So I have no specific ask of you today. Nothing. It's the message. Just allow the message to flow through you. Allow the message to be a part of you. Allow yourself to find solace knowing that the consciousness is within you and that you are a part of the higher consciousness. And that is what I have to share today. On a separate note, before I end, Govardhan Puja was what was done in India yesterday. Okay, it was on the 15th. Today, on the 16th, is the last day of Diwali that is celebrated, and it's celebrated as Bhai Dooj, a celebration of the bond between the brother and a sister. And it's got a very interesting story. It's got a little of a Bollywood masala to it. that I'll share with all of you tomorrow. But for those of you who do have siblings, brothers and sisters who you connect with, I wish you all joy. I wish you all peace. I wish you lovely and strong relationships and bonds with each other, because it is a bond that's celebrated for a number of reasons. And on that note, if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to take them. If you have any experience over these past few days beyond the meditation, please feel free to share. I know that I have had two very profound uh, experiences over yesterday and day before, and they're a little personal, so I won't share. But what I would like to share is that I followed the example, I followed the message that I asked all of us to follow when it comes to including Deepavali with those around us, not necessarily physically, or there was a very specific uh, difference in what I was doing, and I don't know why I did it. It just came through, and there was something that it just showed up in front, and it said, it almost felt like when I mentioned the other day that the more you empty your cup, the more you receive, right? Even if the cup is tiny. Because if the tinier the cup, the better actually. Because this tiny cup, you'll keep giving, keep receiving, keep giving, keep receiving. And people understand by quantity always, not always quantity. So you see a child would cry if he received just one present versus his friend receiving five. And you're like, oh, I got just one. One big present is not the same as five smaller presents to some. So smaller cups, smaller acts rake in that spiritual bounty for us. So, but don't do it with that intention. Just do it for the sake of doing it. Okay. If you're going to look for those things and say, hey, I kept pouring five cups out and I didn't receive anything, doesn't work that way. Okay. Right. Anyone would like to share anything, or we're good to go? And I wish you all a wonderful day ahead or a wonderful evening ahead, wherever you may be. Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste.